Hi everyone, Redneck Computer Geek here. So on this series on RCG racing, we're going to be working with this 18 horsepower DuroMax, and we're going to be starting with a baseline. Today's goal, we're going to install a tachometer, which you can see on the other side of the screen. And I'm going to show you how to wrap that on the spark plug wire. And then we're going to fire this thing up and we're going to find our baseline. A lot of you are gearheads, engine tuners, and things like that. This location is at about 200 feet above sea level. Today's humidity is about 50%. It's not a perfect situation for test running and burning in a motor, but it's what we have here in the state of Maine during this time of year. Now, a lot of you have asked me about the comparison of this DuroMax for about $400 versus the Yanmar diesel that I have in diesel liter, and what the comparison is torque-wise. This DuroMax out of the box claims that at 3,600 RPM that it has 26 foot-pounds of torque. Now, the Yanmar is a weird engine in that it is a diesel. It actually has 30 foot-pounds of torque at 2,200 RPM, but at 3,600 RPM, the max of that motor stock, it actually drops down to 22 pounds of torque. So, horsepower-wise, this has a lot more horsepower. RPM capability-wise, this has a lot more capability wrapped up in it that we can unhinge. As far as basic off-the-shelf is concerned, for $200 more than this, if you don't mind having a pull start only, you're getting an extra 4 foot-pounds of torque. If that matters to you, there you go. Now, let's get to this. What we have on the other side of the screen is we have a generic single-cylinder tachometer. From factory, when you start it up, it's going to do a countdown cycle while it calibrates itself. Do not interrupt it while it does that 10-second countdown. You waited for it to show up from Amazon for 3 days. You can wait 10 seconds. At that point, it is ready to install. You do not have to do any more programming. From factory, it comes preset with what you need for this. On a side note, the battery that is in it has a little stupid plastic tab that you will have to remove. Make sure you do that, or else you'll be one of those people that comments or sends me emails that feels really dumb. Okay, now, let's talk about the tachometer. We got a tachometer. It is RPM spark sensitive. So the moment this thing starts to move, it will turn that on, and you can manually shut it off, and it should timer out also. All it is just this wire, and you wrap it around the spark plug wire about 5 times. Now, the reason why it is we're experimenting with this, what I have discovered is that different motors take different numbers of wraps in order to get the correct RPM. That is why we're starting with a known factory setting, and then we're going to be adding things to this motor. So, let's wrap it the general 5 that is recommended. I have found on certain Kohler twins that it does seem to actually take less wraps in order to set off. And on other motors, I've seen it take 6 in order to set off. We're going to try 5 to start with. Like I said, this is pretty stupid proof. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps around the coil wire. I've added some liquid electrical tape on both sides of this, and the reason being is because whatever this coil wire is made out of is really, really slippery compared to the lawn tractor coils that I have used this on in the past. So for the sake of consistency through the group of videos we're going to be doing, I have made sure that it's not going to move even though we zip tied it in place. So really, I don't care whether you can see me. What's important is that you can see this tachometer. And right now we're in low, so we're going to stick it up to rabbit where it's supposed to be. We're going to set it for full choke. We're going to set the gas to the on position. And we're going to see if we can start it up. We've got to energize our booster pack here and let it go for it. So as you can see on this, basically it sits at about 3790, 3780. We've run it for over 10 minutes at this point. I even took the time to loosen up the coil of wire around the coil wire and tighten it back up. And as you saw, it didn't really make any major difference there. In the next video, we're going to address the myth, the legend, the whatever you want to call it, about whether open air box affects the RPM and if a straight pipe exhaust will affect the RPM capability. The other thing that we'll be addressing later on really soon is this particular motor has a habit of falling flat on its face stock if you give it the throttle. We're going to address whether that's the muffler or whether that's the carburetor causing it. Make sure you argue in the comments below as to which one it is. Also, make sure you argue in the comments below about whether removing this will affect the RPMs or whether removing the exhaust will affect the RPMs. But for now, let's show you what we mean about falling flat on its face. Might help if we had the booster pack connected. Ready?